So the first thing I want you to do, I want you to access catalog, okay? So hit the second and then the 0 to get the catalog. And then you have this list. You need to scroll all the way down to diagnostic on. And yeah, it's way down. So there's diagnostic off, diagnostic on, and then you hit enter. And then it will give you this screen that says diagnostic on. Hit enter again. In the catalog, okay?
You should do it.
Will this throw my AP
What diagnostic on does is when we go to create the line of regression and it gives us the slope and the y-intercept, it will also give us the R, the correlation coefficient, okay? If the diagnostic is off, it will not give us that. And if you watched the video, you saw that originally when we did it, you probably did not have an R, you just had an A and a B, and we'll talk about what all that is in a second, okay? So when we go to enter the data, we hit the stat button, okay? And we're gonna edit. Stat is 2 to the right of the green key, okay? Now, in my list, I removed all the data. One of the things I want you to be careful of when you want to clear your list, do not use the delete button. Because if you press the delete button, you will literally delete the entire list. If you want to, so if I'm going to enter the data 16, 17, 18, I'm just going to stop there because I'm going to show you how to delete the data. So I go up to where it says L1 and I highlight it. And then I hit the clear button. Do not hit delete. Clear, and then enter, and that will remove the entire data within the list without eliminating the list. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you want to go all the way up to the top to where it says L1, and then hit clear. Okay? Now, so let's enter the data, and someone will have to read it to me. I know it's 16, 17, 18, 19, does it go to 21? Yeah. So the data that was in the video. 16. Okay. And then I move over to list 2. What's the rest of the data? Somebody read it to me.
6605.
6605.
8932.
8932.
8506.
8506.
7349.
7349. 6458 5974. Okay, so now when I look at my data, I've got X, and my list 1 is going to be my X's, my list 2 is going to be my Y's. Okay. Is that data correct based off of what I had in the video?
Very cool. I did watch it.
Okay. Now, here's what happens with this, okay? Now that I have the data in there, I can turn the stat plot on, and it will produce a scatter plot. Now I want to show you how to do that, okay? So the stat plot button is right here, okay? So I hit second, and I hit the y equals for my stat plot. Now look what comes up, okay? I have 4 different possibilities, and if you notice, so they're all, my plots are all off right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit enter on number 1 because I need to turn that plot on. And if you notice when I do that, it gives me all these different options. So first I need to hit enter to turn it on. And so now my plot is on. And then if you see here in the types, there's several different possibilities. I can do a scatter plot, and it looks like a little picture of a scatter plot, which is what I want. There's a little line graph. There's like a histogram bar graph. There are box and whisker plots, which we don't need. So we want, it's already on the scatter plot, so I'm good. I also want to go down and look at my X list and my Y list. So we put our X's in list 1, so that says L1, so we're good. Y list is L2. If you ever wanted to change those, down here are where your lists are. L1, L2, L3, L6, L5, L4. So you can tell the calculator which lists to pull the data from when you do your graph, okay? And you can change the mark. So right now on the bottom here, my mark is like this little square thing. I can change it to plus signs if I want to. I can change it to just a point. I'm going to leave it as this sort of square thing because then it'll show up better. Now, the last thing I want to do before I actually go to graph is I want to hit the y equals button to see if there's any graphs already in there. And in my case, and you want to scroll down because sometimes you'll have junk in there that you don't need. All right, and I do not have anything on my y equals screen, which means there will be no other lines. So we're good to go there, okay? And notice that the plot, number 1 at the top is highlighted, which means it's turned on. So now if I hit the graph button, it should show up. Except here's what my problem is. My window is set up as a 10 by 10. And if we think about our data, the lowest x value is 16. The highest x value is 21, and all my y values were in the thousands. So my window doesn't even show where the data would be. But our calculator can zoom in on our plot. And so if you scroll down, there's a bunch of different zoom options, but number 9 is zoom stat, which means it will zoom in on where my statistics are. So if I hit enter on number 9, now it'll just show me my my scatter plot, okay? And if you hit the trace button, okay, now it's going to jump from point to point. So there's one of my points, 16, 6,605. If I hit the right arrow, it'll jump over to the next one. And so I can keep moving around from point to point to make sure it's actually graphed the points I want.
That's cool.
Okay, so that's kind of a cool little feature, okay? Now, the next thing. First of all, are there any questions so far?
No.
Okay. Now, part of the point of 2.4 and part of the point of what we're doing for displays of data is to find a correlation between these points to see if there's a relationship. Okay. It appears like, except for this point over here, we have a fairly strong negative relationship because as it goes downward from left to right, that makes it negative. And as I talked about in the notes, the stronger the relationship, the closer to 1 or -1 it will be. And since this one seems to have a downward negative relationship, we would expect that the R value is going to be closer to -1 than it will be to 0. But because of this point over here and the fact that we only have, 6 data points, it's likely that's not going to be close to -1 because of this point over here. All right, but we'll see and we'll test it out. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to find out the values of R and the slope and y-intercept for my line of regression. So I hit my stat button again, and this time we're going to go over to calculate. And you can use number 4 linear regression, it's AX plus B. You can also use number 8 linear regression, and that's A plus BX. The only difference between the two is in number 8, the y-intercept is A, but in number 4, the y-intercept is B. It doesn't matter which one you use. It will still do the calculations for you. I'm going to use number 8 because that's what I talked about in the video. And so from there, I just hit enter. Okay, now your screens might look different, but you want to double check that your X list is list 1, your Y list is list 1. We don't need to do anything with the frequency list or the storing the regression equation. Actually, we might be able to do that, but I'm going to leave that off for now because I'm not entirely sure how to do that, but I feel like that's probably useful. But anyway, once I hit calculate and hit enter, it's going to give me all the values that I need. And this is something you need to know how to do for your quiz. This is something you're going to need to know how to do for your test. What I mentioned in the video is that in this case, B is my slope, negative 335.257. And then the A, or the y-intercept, is 13,506.257. You want to write those down somewhere, especially because on your tests and quizzes, you're going to have to tell me what those values are. Okay, and then same with R. R squared is just R, this correlation coefficient squared. We don't really use that for anything, but we will use this R. And as we mentioned before, because of that outlier, it's not as close to -1 as we would have expected. But these are the values that you need to write down for your homework assignments, for your quizzes, for your tests, in order to come up with the correct answer. So now I need to write these numbers down so then we can then turn it around and put it on my y equals screen, and then I can insert the linear the linear regression line, the best fit line, onto my scatter plot. So I'm going to go over and do that now. Okay. So on my y equals, my slope was negative 335.257, and then I'm going to put my x in there because that's the slope, plus my y-intercept was 13,506.257. And once that's in there, what we should see is the line appear on our scatter plot and sort of cut it as best as we can down the middle. And so notice here that because of this point here, it sort of tilts the line down instead of being really right over the points. This point pulls the line down. So for this set of data, that's the line of regression. Okay, and so that's what we're doing in this section.
Cool.